Investing in Women Accelerate Progress, putting a spotlight on the essential and inseparable roles of decent work, gender equality, and making sure that we acknowledge women in all our places of work. Today, we are going to have our Justice Thursday conversation on Friday because it's International Women's Day on this Friday, and we have a judge at the High Court sitting here with us. On the bench is Lady Justice Patricia Nyaundi, Judge of the High Court. We want to talk about the role of women in women judges and magistrates and what women have done in the criminal justice system. Judge, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Asante.
Utajitetea ukiwa pande gani?
Hapa tu.
Papo hapo ulipo.
Papa hapa.
Okay. Mashtaka utasomewa na Bwana City Muga.
Naomba ujitayarishe. You know, this is really nice.
This is
A real life judge.
And you're there.
And I'm there.
And you're the prosecutor.
And I'm the one who's reading the mashtaka. The mashtaka comes in the form of a proverb. This week our proverbs are from the kingdom of Swatini. It used to be known as Swaziland, but it's actually, it is written as Swatini, but pronounced Swatini. Yes. Of interest, day before yesterday, the ambassador to Kenya handed in his credentials to our president. The gentleman's name is Mahlaba Mwamba. We are wondering, this Mwamba, does it mean the same thing as it does in Kenya?
Is it Mwamba or Mamba?
Mwamba.
Mwa. There's a W. Okay.
Yes. Right. The proverb. A runaway monk never speaks well of his monastery.
A runaway monk never speaks well of his monastery. See, they just say always speaks ill. Doesn't have to mean the same thing.
No, not necessarily.
Okay, we have a senior counsel here. She'll tell us those two are different. But then, so what's your interpretation of this, Judge?
That if you never have a good view of people who evict you, yeah, you'll never have something good to say.
People who force you into a certain circumstance,
Yeah.
will always have a certain, you'll always have a certain perspective and image of them. It's not necessarily going to be a good one.
Yeah.
So what's the lesson here?
The lesson is allow people. This is really much
To be bad.
Allow people to live peacefully.
Nice one. Nice one. Judge, how long have you been a judge of the High Court now? We've known you from various other sectors, in public service, in private practice, in advocacy. Take us through your journey up to here.
My journey as from
Yeah.
beginning of my creation.
Not that far. Not that far.
Okay. Career progression. Okay, straight out of college, I worked at the AG's department, then had a short stint in private practice, discovered I didn't know how to collect fees, so went back into employment, worked at FIDA, had worked at the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission, worked at the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, and then got last 2022 December, was appointed as a judge. Yes.
That's an illustrious career. I mean, if you look at what you've done, when you sit now as a judge of the High Court, you are somebody who has been an advocate for human rights in the country. You're somebody who, just sitting in the TJRC, you have faced and you have heard stories of what happens in this country, right? And today we are celebrating, women such as yourself and others who are in the criminal justice system for what they've done and what they've gone through. How would you describe that experience? I mean, just sitting at the helm of the Human Rights Commission, or being a member of the TJRC, or working at FIDA, and seeing that the work that you need to do to push for human rights. What has that done to you?
I think the continuous thread in my career progression, and especially today as we are commemorating Women's Day, yesterday International Women's Judges Day. I think what I reflect on and I'm awed by is how all along in my career, there's always been a big sister who has opened the way for me, has inspired me, has challenged me. And I think that's it for many women and girls. On a day such as this, is each one of us just reflecting on the role we have played to inspire other women and girls to just rise up and take the opportunities that are available, challenging society to give women a fair chance. And when you have the opportunity to serve such as I have, is to always reflect and say, what's my value add? What can people really say is your contribution and to progress? In my case, in the justice sector, and for many women, being able to celebrate that because doors have opened, we are able to say that this is the contribution we are making.
The power of hand-holding, and it's always been said. I mean, when the person who's actually holding the door open for you, it's not costing them much. They were just passing by there, they held the door open. But the person who walks through that door will never forget that job that person did, you know. You'll never forget. And that's why today, for example, you're saying you remember the women who were holding the door open for you, even if they were just holding it by putting a foot there. And so you can just walk in, or even if they're just pushing it so you can walk in.
You know, it's of interest because when it is remarkable that doors are opened for you by someone, what is not spoken of is those that were shut in your face, as in opportunities that were missed. So you get to appreciate highly and fully those who did the complete opposite of what you had experienced before. And you do not forget them. Because that now is that seismic shift. You suddenly realize this is a change from what one has seen. Now, that is what makes for these permanent changes that people have, because you then realize, wait a moment, this thing has been handed over to me in essence. So it means I now have to open other doors for other people.
As you look at here we are talking about judges and magistrates in the criminal justice system, which when you look at it off the top, it just seems like a sector whereby you had to be maybe a little bit harder than your disposition, that you had to be cutthroat in how you deal with issues. And so, because of that perception, it would have been left as then an area that only men could play in. But women have been able to transverse this. How do you think that journey has gone over time to whereby we do have some of the topmost judges and magistrates in the criminal justice system as women?
I think the first has been those who went ahead of us is just disrupting this societal, what I would call wrongful framing, that imagining that women, we may be weaker physically but never intellectually. And I think the trailblazers, those who went ahead, the women, if you look at think of the Justice Effie Awards, Justice Effie Watch, the fasts, now retired, what's her name again? Nambuye, fasts. So there are women of fasts in the judiciary. And when you take the time to trace the things that they did in the judiciary, you can see that really justice is not genderized. I mean, you can't just assume that because she cannot lift physically, what a man would lift, that she's unable to do the same intellectually, that even intellectually there's a difference in strength. So this is what the women did. They disabused that cliche that somehow women always enter at the lower rank and they grow into this position. When we talk of criminal justice and the strides that women have made, one of the decisions that really made me sit up was that of Justice Aburili, if any of you followed that. And this was a woman who had been charged with murder of her husband. And in her decision, Justice Aburili examined what is the impact of domestic violence, for instance, on a survivor of that. And when, as had happened in this case, in the course of an altercation, the woman had dealt the man a fatal blow. And Justice Aburili, in very poetic words, had said this woman had been sentenced to death in installments. And what we see with the women entering the bench is we all show up in public spaces with the luggage, or the benefit, I should say, of our real life experiences. So when we allow and position people, and women as different, it means they come with their world view. And sometimes it takes somebody of the same gender to fully appreciate the context that we are dealing with. For a long time, you must have known that when it was sexual offenses, the decision that stung us was one that said that it is in the nature of women to lie about their sexual experiences, and that a woman, for some reason, will just be creative about sex, to the extent that she will create a rape.
For what purpose, though?
So that was
the narrative.
But that was and it took the introduction into the judiciary of people with a different mindset.
Sure.
Sometimes not necessarily women. I say you can be a woman by nature or by nurture. And so there's a generation even of men that fully appreciate, that we cannot show up in public spaces with some of these stereotypes. And it is when we had this generation of men and women generally who are determined to ensure that when you say justice is for all actually means all. All does not just mean those that we choose to see, but all means each one of us with all our uniqueness. So we really, on a day like this, we really celebrate the pioneer women judges, women magistrates, and men who are women by nature, who have beaten the bullet and said, we have to make justice work, even for women.
Judge, in the criminal justice system, and we've had these conversations many times in our Justice Thursday conversations, how women enter the criminal justice system, how many women end up with the short end of the stick when they get into the criminal justice system. Now we have women magistrates and women judges on the other end who are looking at the women who are in the system, who are being processed by the system. Is there a change in mind shift? Cases have been there, like you've just talked about, a case where it's a case on sexual violence and the treatment of the system on the victim of the sexual violence, or victim of gender-based violence or domestic violence, or even those simple victims of what we call small crimes or petty crimes who have entered the system, but because she's a woman and she has spent a night in custody, it means a lot because she left a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 2 weeks old, a 2 months old at home who's been affected. Just that woman entering the system has a big impact. Have the women in the judiciary had a conversation about, wait a minute, we need to shift the thinking?
Yes, so this really goes to how now courts are managed. So what time do you start your court? Because you can't be starting your sessions maybe at 11 and probably it's mentioned. So you are conscious that if I have women coming, I need to release them. If it's a mention, get back to their business. So how do you manage your court? What time do you start? What time do you release people? They're able to go back to their business. Are you sentencing everyone to prison? Not everyone needs to go into prison, especially for petty offenses, just for the sake of getting you to sit upright. Like if somebody, is here for brewing illicit brews, I mean, this was income.
Ni mama wa changa.
Yes, and a number of, like my grandmother, that's how she educated my dad.